Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Lich Please podcast with your host Alex and Yuan. And today we have a new guest on. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm RobbintheHobbit from TikTok. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for coming on.
It's gonna be
Yeah,
great. Yeah.
should be fun.
So normally we'd start by asking how you go into D&D, but I did see a TikTok of yours, and it was your favorite question is tell me about your homebrew world.
My homebrew world.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the perfect place to start.
Okay, so well, I had a homebrew world where we played for the first time. It was called Elysir. Basically, a run-of-the-mill regular fantasy setting with the main villains being the seven deadly sins.
Oh, that's really cool. That's nice.
We played one campaign in there, lasted about 1.5 years, I believe, and then we jumped into a written module that I'm currently running, which is called Storm King's Thunder.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that sounds so. Did you for the homebrew world? Did you just come up with the idea yourself, or was it like you saw something somewhere about it and was like, "Oh, this is going to be really cool to homebrew"?
I think, uh, well, I've had a bit of a bad track record when starting D&D because for the first time, I really didn't understand that there were pre-written modules, so I had to
Uh,
start from the beginning. I thought to play D&D you would have to have a homebrew world.
oh wow.
So
Okay, so you challenged yourself from the beginning.
yeah, so it started sort of, I believe I found a D&D monster while reading about D&D, which was probably Gluttony, a homebrew D&D stat block, which gave me the inspiration to create this my own homebrew world.
Right. Okay. That's cool. Yeah, it's a really cool concept. How far are
Yeah.
you on Storm King Thunder? Because I've played it once, and the DM I played it for, the very first village, when the orcs attack, we had we pulled up the drawbridge, so the the people who were sent to help you couldn't get in, so we got decimated by the orcs messed us up. We lost a character in that fight, and it was horrendous. It was a bad move from all of us.
Yeah, we're currently running. We're in the later chapters where you're supposed to, not to spoil anything, but fight against the giants
Yeah.
themselves. I totally skipped the introduction thing.
Okay.
It seemed like a perfect recipe for TPKing the party. So we started with Lost Mines of Phandelver, which we transpired into Storm King's Thunder, and I'm sort of running a mixture of Storm King's Thunder and Tyranny of Dragons at the same time,
Oh, nice. That's
with a bit
really
of my
cool.
homebrew adventures sprinkled onto it.
That's cool. So how did you? So you spoke briefly about how you got into D&D. Like how many years ago was that? Like,
Um, must have been 5 to 6 years ago, I believe. Uh, I never was much of a RPG fan. Well, I did like to play, Skyrim and stuff, but it's it's sort of a chaotic story of how I began my DMing career. Um, if you'd like me to tell it.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
go
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
it.
go
Yeah.
ahead.
So my best friend always wanted to start playing D&D with me, but I was never really interested. The whole aspect of imagination and stuff didn't really work for me. Uh, Despite it, I believe it was his birthday when he suggested that we should play D&D. I asked him a couple of days ago before the birthday party what we would like to do, and he told me he would like to play D&D. So I spent 46 hours total learning about D&D, how to create your own characters, how to run D&D game, and note I didn't know there were pre-written adventures.
Oh
So the
God,
entire thing was a catastrophe back then. I swore I would never play D&D again, but here we are.
yeah, that's
Damn.
that's terrifying. Yeah, that's possibly the worst intro to D&D like a story I've ever heard. That must have been rough. So what
Yeah,
brought you back to it?
well, the idea of sucking at a thing sort of brought me back. At first, I swore I would never touch D&D again, but then after a while, I swore to never make a bad session like that again. So I started learning
Nice.
about it, and we first began. We didn't even play D&D 5th edition. We played Adventures in Middle Earth, which is like a supplementary edition to
Oh yeah,
5e, I believe.
yeah. I think I've heard of it. Yeah.
Damn.
Nice.
That is a
Cool.
that is a way to get into D&D.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's intense.
that
Yeah.
began my DMing journey.
So you've DM'd since you've started D&D, like you and constantly DM'd, or have you been a player as well for some campaigns?
At one point, I did join a Finnish D&D game in Roll20, where I sort of got the gist of how to play the game. It was very fun. It lasted probably like 4 sessions before the
Yeah,
DM had to quit.
that happens.
Yeah.
That's common. Yeah.
Yeah. No. That's so. This is a good question. You said you use Roll20. What is your favorite website to use for tabletops? Because I've used a few. I've used Owlbear, Roll20, Above, and Tailspire. So I've used like 4 for different like campaigns. So what would you say your like favorite website app is for online D&D?
Well, I think, I've only used Owlbear Rodeo and Roll20 for purely online D&D.
Yeah.
I would say Roll20, definitely.
Yeah.
Uh, we began playing online, but we slowly shifted into in real life tabletop. But the Owlbear Rodeo is easy to set up, maps and everything. So from time to time, I tend to use online maps through that site as well.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, we just transitioned over to Tailspire. It's like a 3D like modeled one. So you got to pay for it slightly. It is kind of expensive, but it is. I think it's definitely elevated our games. Especially
Yeah.
since we
It's
can't
very
go to
good.
in person. It's the closest we can get to in person, really.
Yeah.
But
So you play online mostly.
yeah, we play. Well, you're in the south of England. One's in
Yeah.
Scotland.
Yeah.
One's in the
Yeah,
Netherlands.
yeah, that makes sense. Then.
So we're all over the place. So you're
Yeah.
collectively getting together for a D&D game would be a challenge.
Yeah. But no, I've never played in person. Yeah, I started online and I've only played online. So I've only been playing a year. I feel like I should clarify that. I've only been playing a year. And I
You're a
wanted to get
COVID
into
player.
it. Yeah. But I didn't know. I don't, and still don't like anyone. Well, I know a few people play D&D, but I wouldn't play D&D with them in real life. I just know. So I got into it online from my uncle. He told me about D&D and he told me there's online groups. I was like, okay. But since last episode, when I talked about I was maybe going to get my friends to do it, I'm getting very close to convincing them. Like
Oh,
this
really?
close, yeah.
Excellent.
Because I was telling them, so I'm writing a pirate campaign for our group that will start in December. It'll be my first time DMing, and I'm really excited because I've written out a lot for this campaign. But I want some world building to happen with a one shot, one shot groups. So you get like a one shot is going to be an important story for the campaign, but it will be like these guys will have no idea anything about the one shot that's happened, but it will change how the story works for my campaign. But I want to do that in real life because it would just be cooler. So I was telling them my real life friends about it, and they're like, "Yeah, we might be down. It depends when, and you're gonna have to explain a lot." I was like, "I don't care. That's fine." Because I really want to just do like a one shot with them to basically force them into playing D&D because I know they'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I've never. until then, I would never have played in real life. Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
I
much.
think it's sort of different experience when you play online and when you play
It
in
really is.
real life. It goes much smoother, I think, the role playing, etc. On my experience, at least, when we play. And of course, there's snacks for everyone. As a DM, I'm
That's a major. Yeah,
entitled to different sort of bribes.
yeah. I think that's possibly the biggest perk of playing in
Yeah,
person is the DM gets bribed heavily.
That's fine by me. That works. Yeah, I definitely am excited to see like how different playing in real life is because online, like it's cool, but and obviously there's virtual tabletops and stuff. Especially with Tailspire, you could definitely live there. But I think it'd be cool to see everyone's reactions because you can't see
Yeah,
anyone online. Like there's no
yeah,
faces. It's just you
we
got to
could.
use your head. We
Yeah, I
could,
mean,
yeah.
we don't use camera, but
Mm,
we could use camera, I
we
guess,
could,
if we
but
wanted to go that route. But
yeah, I mean, I did a camera session. So my first campaign, I'm still in it. It's been a year and like 3 weeks or something, or maybe a month now. But for our year anniversary, we did cameras, like a camera session. That was fun. That was like I thoroughly enjoyable. Camera sessions are cool, but yeah, I think in real life it's a different experience, and I definitely want to.
it really is. Yeah,
Yeah, 100%. Um, so obviously you homebrewed your first campaign,
yeah.
and now you've done modules. Which do you think is better? Like, which do you prefer, or what's your opinions on homebrew versus models?
Um, well, now that I've done both, I think a mixture of both. I know it's a boring answer, but a mixture of both is a healthy alternative for me, at least, because the lore and everything. I remember first doing the campaign. I just started with adventures, just basic adventures, but my players had questions about lore, about politics, and everything, and I had to sort of jam them all in a short period of time. So with the established adventure, you have the world already prepared, and you can put some of your own homebrew through it if you like. So a mixture of both is what I prefer.
Yeah,
that's cool.
yeah.
I
We
think. Yeah,
Well, I agree to some point. I mean, I've not played modules, but I understand like the point in playing it because if you're a new player as well. Obviously, not in your case because you know about modules. But if in general, if you're a new player, it's easier to do a module than, or like a DM, it's easier to get into modules than it is
absolutely, it really
homebrew.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
especially in Storm King's Thunder, the chapter where you have to roam around is sort of like free roam that you can do. There are like 140 different locations that you can visit, but there isn't a whole lot to do in them. So that's why I've been having much fun preparing my own sort of homebrew, researching about the different cities and establishments, and making my own adventures through them.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what our last guest, 220s, later said as well. He liked getting what's the word? Um, campaign books, so like world books, setting guides, even settings, and then homebrewing adventures within them. So, like exactly like you said, that's what he didn't like the aspect of homebrewing his own world because of time and all the detail you've got to put into it, but the aspect of making the adventures and making everything within a preset world was something he really enjoyed. So I think that's a pretty common view amongst DMs is setting guide and then homebrew within it.
yeah. So, have you used your homebrew world for like the most of the campaigns you've DM'd? Like, is it a part of different campaigns, or was it just like a one campaign you made a homebrew world for at the start?
It was yeah, it was just one campaign in that homebrew world, and I'm currently working on another homebrew world in my spare time. Uh, but definitely, I would like to visit the previous one. It sort of sucks that we didn't get to face against the sins I believe we did 1 or 2
Okay.
battles against them, but they were like CR 20, CR 17, or such. So they were like late game bosses,
Yeah.
which we didn't get to.
Yeah, that's fair. I
I
think
mean,
throwing that at a
definitely
level
would like
2
to visit
party would
there.
be
yeah, it would be good
would be a
against the
rough
early party.
experience.
I think you'd throw it at us in our
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
campaign. Yeah.
Yeah, and knowing where like you'd kill it, and I'd be like, well, what happens now?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are level 2 and you've taken on Slards already, so you know you're doing pretty well.
That was
Slards are
really?
not an easy.
yeah, that was a scarring fight though. That was close.
It was close on many different levels. Yeah.
I think the first one was the first Slard we fought was meant to
Oh yeah, you got.
was meant to be difficult, but we have a paladin, and what was it? Compelled Jewels, or what did the paladin? What
Hold
did Tyr
creature,
use?
I think it was.
Yeah, something.
Hold creature, maybe it was some spell
Yeah.
that like just stopped it in its tracks, and I was like, well,
Yeah, and we just killed it. It was really easy. The second fight was against a few of them, and it was like, ooh, a bit more difficult. Yeah, but that was that was. It makes it more interesting. It's not the hardest fight we fought either, but it is nice to get slightly harder like fights in a campaign, I think, than easier fights. I feel like if you got easy fights in a camp, like there are people who want easy fights, of course, because they'll be like, "Oh, I've made a character whose backstory is like he's really strong and he's like a hero of the lands." So the fight should be easy for him. But then, like, if you're making a character that's heroes of the lands, they're not going to be level 1, so it doesn't make sense, right? But
yeah,
I think harder fights are definitely more enjoyable because then at least there's some risk. Like there's in the back of your mind that there is the risk of dying, and it makes it more realistic as opposed to you're not going to die, so just do what you want. I think it's just better for role playing campaigns in general. Though people may disagree because easier fights are also easier for the DM.
Yeah, it's sort of fun when you try to make an easy encounter. It ends up stomping the entire party, and when you throw a dragon against them, they kill it first round. So it's very hard to anticipate sometimes the combat encounters.
Yeah.
What's your preferred split? Are you like a 60-40 RP, or like are you a heavy combat DM? Like, what's your go-to like divide?
Personally, I am heavily oriented in the combat aspect of D&D.
Oh, okay.
But I do have players who enjoy the roleplay aspect very much. So I try to balance these things. But personally, I would like to roll or to run a more heavy combat type of campaign.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think we're both very much in the opposite direction and more interested in the sort of roleplay aspect.
Yeah. I mean, I was originally not. I went into D&D for the combat because I was like big on games and like not role playing games. I've never properly played one apart from Gloomhaven before that. But that's basically just combat. Like it's not a role playing game. It's there's a story and you can act as a character, but it's not an RPG, right? So I went into D&D with the premise of I really want to fight things, and then like it took like one session until I went, oh, maybe the role playing's cool. Yeah, sure. And then eventually I got into the role playing aspect more. But I do like a good fight. Like I think there's a certain amount of time I could go without a fight before I'd be like, oh, can we fight something, please? Because I need to roll my dice or something. I can't just sit here and be like, oh, I don't get to fight anything. But yeah, I'm definitely more into the role playing now.
What do you think of my split then? Do you think it's too heavy towards the RP, or do you think it's just?
I think it's that's the perfect balance. Like that's the balance I like.
Okay.
Because there is combat enough. I'd say on average, we've got combat like every 3 sessions, maybe on average, maybe 2,
Pretty
2 or
much.
3,
It's something like that.
Yeah, but that's what I like. But and the other campaigns, I think maybe every 2 sessions. So it's about the same. But if I was in a campaign where it's like every 7 sessions you get combat, I could not do it. 7 sessions of just talking and walking around and an odd check for like intimidation or persuasion or perception. No, I couldn't do that. It's just too long to go without fighting something.
I do think it comes down very much to the party, right? If you're the kind of DM that's going to be throwing combat at a party everywhere they go, everywhere they walk, they're going to get a combat. But if they're doing a session where, we actively don't want to combat this session, and you can infer that by the way they're acting, and then they go during that session, they're planning, we want to go here and we want to fight this, or we want to take this contract and go here and fight that. You've got to kind of let the party dictate the pace in a sense.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my take.
I usually I usually put at least one encounter per session.
Okay.
I 3D print and paint my miniatures by myself, so it's
that's impressive. That's really
it's
cool.
a job or work to do for each session. But I understand we have a rogue mastermind with a ton charisma stat, I believe +5, +6, with expertise on persuasion, etc. So he has this
God, that's
sort of knack
terrifying.
of talking his way out of combat. And even though there's nothing more that I'd love to just roll the dice and run the encounter, sometimes I just have to be like, yeah, that's fair. We can skip the encounter.
Yeah. Like
you persuaded them. They're not going to attack.
Damn.
So that must have what, like a plus?
It's high, and
God, I don't even.
I'm guessing
like
there's
8 or
higher.
9, right? Something like that. On persuasion, that's crazy.
Yeah, blimey. So obviously, what did you say you've been playing for 5 years, 6 years? I think it was
roughly. Yeah.
So obviously, you would have built a lot of characters and whatnot. And finally, after remembering this question and writing it in the notes, what would you say is your favorite class?
4 episodes in, I might add. 4 episodes in, we've been trying to ask this question.
It's taken us a while to
4
remember.
episodes, and we're finally asking it.
Okay.
But favorite class subclass. Yeah.
My favorite class or subclass would be Bard and College of Law Bard. Probably.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
I believe that was the first character I played. No, that was the second character I played in the short span that I got to be a player. And I fell in love with the Bard class ever since. Next favorite would be Monk. And that's the second character I played.
Yeah, I love monks.
Oh yeah, Monk. I think Monk is kind of hated upon, and I think he gets a lot of flack unfairly. I don't know why people are hating on the Monk. Monk's pretty cool.
It's because it's like harder to do things with a monk. Like
it is.
I enjoy playing a monk, but it's just if you're going to play a fighting class, it's probably easier to use a fighter or barbarian. Like they do more. Because monks are like heavily nerfed for some reason. They just are. But I love monks. The monk was my first character. A Dragonborn monk with the Way of Descendant Dragon subclass. Very first character. Because it's like I get like 4 dragon's breaths or something ridiculous because it's the monk subclass and I'm a dragon. And then on that character I even took 3 levels in Ranger to get the Drake Warden subclass to get a pet dragon. God. So I was just like a dragon with dragon stuff. It was really fun. Like I really enjoyed it.
It's fantastic, man.
Yeah.
It's just made me realise that you've only been playing since Fizzbender has been out, and I remember that book coming out it feels like a couple of months ago, but it's what? Over 2 years ago now? Since Frontier Dragons came out?
Yeah.
That's mad.
But I love monks. I've never played a bard. I couldn't comment if it's a fan club. And I've played in campaigns with bards.
I think I suck at role playing, which is why I tend to go heavily on the combat aspect in D&D, which is strange because bard is, I believe, a role playing class, or it's the best in role playing class with the bardic inspiration dice and vicious mockery, etc.
Yeah, no, it's definitely. You could argue it's probably the biggest role-playing class out of all the choices of classes.
I think the appeal of monks is the versatility, right? With all the subclasses for the bard, you've got so many options to go down whatever route you want to do. You've got Valor, Law. Oh God, I'm forgetting the other ones now. But there's like so many bard subclasses, like so different aspects of like the bard class that you've got so much versatility with it that it really does feel like you've got a lot of options. Like you could have a full bard party, and I think everyone would like still have their defined roles by having like all bards.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I
Yeah,
don't think you could get with any other class because I feel like all paladin class that's horrific. Oh, like that
I would love to play a full bard class party.
I think it
yeah,
would be
full
fun. I
bard
think
class would
that'd
be
be a
really
fun
fun.
idea for a thing. Yeah, no, I think it'd definitely be a good idea. Which I I could be setting up for the future. Saying this on a podcast, it means it's possible people are going to do that for my campaign, considering characters
So,
aren't fully hashed
now
out.
he said it, guys. We can do it now.
I mean, that's fine by me. It's a pirate campaign. You can sing shanties or whatever. Like, go ahead.
Oh, that'd be good. That'd be good.
Yeah, but yeah, I've never played a bard. I've played a few classes. My like the monk is my favorite because it's my first. But the most interesting I've played is probably I've a sorcerer. I do like sorcerers. A clockwork. I think I've got clockwork soul sorcerer, which is good fun. Yeah, it's just I like spells. A lot of games I played on like PlayStation or whatever usually went for the mage class, like wizard or whatever, like Destiny. Always, every time went warlock. Every single time, always. I'd never went anywhere else just to get spells. But yeah, sorcerer is definitely the most interesting I've played. Yeah, it's up there with the monk subclass, monk class. But I still need to play a few more first. Luckily, I've started a new campaign or continued a campaign on Tuesdays. I'm now paladin in that one, which I'm excited for because I play a paladin on Baldur's Gate. So you know, I'm hoping to see it will be similar to Baldur's Gate. That's kind of the whole reason I'm playing a paladin. It's because I played one on Baldur's Gate. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, that sounds like fun. Yeah, I play. So I play once a week, which is not played for a while actually. But I play a barbarian and so a barbarian multi-class with a paladin. So it's an interesting combination. It's horrific for combat.
How does that
like
work?
it's because I've kind of based it on like the roleplay aspect. Like he's a bugbear, so like he's trained as like a paladin, but like the barbarian side of him is in there, and like when he rages, he like loses all the aspect of like the regimented military thing. Throws down his shield, two hands, his sword, and just goes buck wild. Yeah, it's fun. But like I never really play optimized characters. Like anyone listening will know that playing like a paladin and a barbarian, horrific, like really bad. My charisma is dog shit. I can't cast any good spells. It's a really bad multi-class, but I fucking love it. It's a great character.
Yeah, I can imagine that being bad.
Yeah, never seen that combination before.
No,
Never heard of that.
There's
Yeah,
a reason. There's a reason for that, and it's interesting.
but it sounds cool.
Yeah,
It's an interesting concept. I'm just lucky
Definitely.
that he's the only tank, so he does have a role. If I wasn't the only tank, I feel like I'd just be like a spare part. But
yeah. So obviously you've been a DM for as long as you've played D&D, and you might be a part of like some groups online for DMing and sessions and people putting out like, oh, do you want to join a session, whatever. Sometimes they'll put out paid. Your opinion on paid DMs, good or bad, or just, you know, they're free to ask for money?
I think, well, I'm a bit biased because I'm mostly a DM. But the amount of work a DM can put in setting up the session, especially if it's a homebrew game or sort, I can definitely understand the aspect of charging money from it. So I would be, yeah, it would be okay for me to pay, for example, a DM to run a game for me. But I mostly run for my friends or friends of friends.
Yeah,
So in that aspect, I couldn't ask money from them because we're all having fun and they're friends.
yeah, exactly. I think for me, it's the ones that turn it into a business, and you'll see like sometime on the groups, like someone will post like, "Oh, I'm brand new to D&D, never played before, looking for a game," and like immediately you get a paid DM commenting, being like, "I run a game, it's like £10 a session," and it's kind of like, well, don't be like that, taking advantage. I don't like that at all. Like that immediately makes me feel weird, and I'm like, you're just like, it feels predatory. Um, and
Mm.
then you'll get people being like, just like 30 or 40 people that can't be like, I need a player, please. I need a player, please help me. Like it's free. Just come every Monday. I just need one more person to run the game, and it's like those are the kind of people you want. They're like, please. The ones who enjoy the effort of DMing and want to just do it because they are having fun doing it, and that is like the best kind of person to play with. Absolutely.
So, have you played mostly with the same group of people, or do you have a few groups of people you play with?
Mostly with the same, pack of people, with my best friends and some of our other friends since the day we started.
So
But
like
I've,
what, 5 years?
yeah, roughly so.
That's impressive. That's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
we stick up to this point at least. And I've run several one shots to a new group of people, trying to introduce them to D&D, but mostly with this existing group of friends.
Oh wow, yeah. So, what do they? Is it the same party, like the exact same party, or is there enough people you can mix and match the party for the campaign?
It's the exact same party, but we do have some guest stars occasionally visiting, uh, playing a one shot character in that current campaign, for example.
That's cool.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, fair enough. So, I was gonna ask what your biggest red flag in a player is before and after, like before they've started the session or after. But obviously, you've done a lot of one shots for it. I guess that could help there. So, if you are recruiting players for a one shot or anything, what would be your biggest red flag when you meet them or during the session?
I've never personally met a person that has a quality that cannot be talked or resolved by talking to them. But I would say not listening to anyone would be a huge red flag.
Yeah.
There have been players, especially new players, that like to take the main character role, for example, which is it's usual. And but with talking to them, it's occasionally, well, mostly. Uh, I sort of had a blackout. Mostly, yeah. When you talk to them, you can resolve the main character
Yeah,
aspect. But
absolutely.
I can definitely understand the
It's
aspect.
kind of understandable with new players as well. It's
Yeah,
kind of like,
exactly.
hey, that's not cool. Don't do that, and it kind of resolves pretty quickly. I
But
think
if you
that
can't
that makes sense.
listen, yeah, if you can't listen to the DM or the other players talking, like it's not cool, then that would be a red flag. You're sort of running
Absolutely.
your own show there.
Fair enough. So you would never have. So you've never got into the situation where you've had to stop like a one shot or a session to talk to a player, or has that
No,
happened before?
there have been situations where I had to, after the session, talk to the player, or before the session, if I know the type of person that's coming in, uh, to personally talk to them beforehand or after. But there has never been a case where I have to stop the session itself,
Yeah,
to sort of.
Nice.
fair enough.
So
Yeah.
last week we asked the same question. I guess that was from the US. So we asked him like, what D&D culture like for like where you're from? Because I think especially for him in the US, it's become quite a big thing now, and it's quite popular and it's quite normalized. Here, it's in the UK, it's kind of like getting out of that phase into the sort of the nerds in the basement kind of thing. to the more like kind of socially acceptable and people talk about it openly. What's it like in Finland? Like, is it still like what's the perception of it? What do people think of it?
Um, well, I think it's sort of like in England, it's coming out as a more socially acceptable. When I first started, or when my friend tried to get me into D&D, I had the sort of understanding that it's a basement dwelling D&D game where we lob and dress up as wizards. But I believe because of, especially with Stranger Things, it has
Yeah,
come to
yeah.
more acceptable pop culture-ish thing here. And there have been people asking me about D&D now that they sort of know me as the D&D guy here in our area. But it's still, yeah, it's still coming along to that point.
Yeah, I think that of you being recognized as a D&D guy, that would be so that takes us nice to a conversation about TikTok. So what how did you get into that? What brought you into that? What
Um,
made you
well, it's basically, I've always had a fascination or interest in sort of, not per se acting, but entertaining people. I've studied or tried to get into a acting school here in Finland, which hasn't worked out yet. But sort of, I found a way, just a passing thought, making something in TikTok, uh, which slowly began to become a thing. I think.
I think it's become a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Looking, yeah,
So,
I would say it's become a thing.
so it wasn't like planned or anything. I just filmed. My first video was probably like showing off my Harry Potter book nook that I crafted, and then doing a couple D&D skits. And then I started realizing that people actually might enjoy these, so I started making more of them, and here we are.
Yeah, I mean, I like the skits. I think they're really good.
Oh,
I
thank
really
you.
liked the favorite question one, the homebrew one. Tell me about your homebrew world. That's my favorite. I really enjoyed that one. Uh,
Do you
but yeah,
watch a lot of other creators for D&D, like Critical Role, as I mentioned, 20, obviously the big ones. Do you like listen to their play podcast or not so much?
Not so much. I watched Critical Role's second campaign mostly to the end. I haven't seen the ending yet, which I really enjoyed. But for me, I think um, Critical Role is a produced, series. It sort of, in my opinion, it lacks the sort of feeling that you get when you play D&D by yourself with your group of friends. That, can you say,
yeah,
authenticity? Even
yeah.
though they are actually friends playing the D&D, but it sort of feels like a
It
produced
it
show.
feels intimidating to watch.
Yeah, yeah, especially with role playing and voice
Yeah, yeah,
acting. That
absolutely.
and Matt Mercer, the god of DMs, making these maps,
I mean,
NPCs.
personally, I would say Brennan is the god of DMs, but I know everyone's got their own
Yeah, I
opinion.
understand. I understand that.
Uh, that's interesting. I think yeah, a lot of people. I think a lot, especially I think a lot of DMs, especially I've spoken to, leaning more on the side that Critical Role is intimidating to watch, and like they dread when a player comes like, oh, I've watched Critical Role. They're like, and now I really want to play it. It's kind of like, oh, okay, that you're like, okay, you need to like lower your standards by like 1,000%. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
me
yeah.
at my kitchen table. We've got like Lego minifigures as like the characters and like a box of dice. That is it. We have not got sound effects. We've not got lights. You just need to sit at my kitchen table and just pretend.
Yeah, no, Critical Role is definitely a lot different to regular campaigns. I definitely agree with what you're saying. Like, it is so much different to actually playing with friends because obviously it's a production, it's edited. Like, it will feel like it's really smooth sailing. A lot of campaigns are not really smooth sailing. There's a lot that happens, and it's you talk a lot as well instead of just being in the campaign at that moment. Yeah, it does. It feels a little less authentic. I definitely agree on that point. Yeah. Um, But I also don't watch like an insane amount of D&D media as such. Like I've obviously seen Critical Role and Dimension 20. I've never watched the full campaign. I watched clips and stuff, but the
After
only
I
campaign.
gave you my login.
Yeah, I know. I know.
So disappointing, Alex.
I will at some point watch the campaign, but the only campaign I've ever watched is a One Piece one. Yeah, and that's it.
Of course.
I just don't. Yeah, of course. I just don't get around to it. It's more that I couldn't sit there and watch people play D&D like I could watch TV. It's not. I just can't. I don't have the attention span to sit there and watch someone roll dice and try and get into my head. I just can't do it. I prefer to watch TV.
That makes sense. It's definitely an acquired taste, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
I think could now be an interesting time to transition to our horror story.
Yeah, definitely.
So, this one is: have any of you heard of or ran Curse of Strahd?
I know Curse of Strahd. I've heard
You
of
know
it.
about it. Okay, cool.
I've played a player in it. Yeah.
You've been a player. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So the title is DM drools after Strahd a bit too much and fetishizes evil. Spoiler for Curse of Strahd. If you've not watched Curse of Strahd, skip forward. So despite role-playing for a while, I had never played Curse of Strahd before. Plenty of my friends complimented the campaign, so of course I was curious to experience it. Finally, I came across a chance to participate as a player. I'm a forever DM, so this was a welcome change for me. Plus, I hadn't played D&D for ages as I run other games. I didn't really know the DM, but he had been a player in some of my games. I didn't know him as a person. He was a good player, although he tended to play morbid characters. Since I mostly run horror, that was fine, but maybe I should have seen the pattern. The campaign starts with session 0 with me and 3 other players. The DM goes at great lengths to list all the possible trigger warnings, from gaslighting to sexual abuse to necrophilia. He pretty much has a monologue list of them for 30 minutes. I thought he was being thorough, but in hindsight, he was a bit too excited about them all. First 5-6 sessions go in an ordinary way. We enter Bavaria and investigate things. Strange dreams visit people. Weirdness starts when we first meet Strahd on the road. The DM goes at great lengths to describe the tightness of his leather pants and the fit of his clothes, how high and mighty his cheekbones were, and how dominating his gaze is. It goes to an uncomfortable length. I get amused because it starts to feel like a fan fiction or parody. I keep it in check after the session. The DM sends every player a private message I like to find out, going on about how alluring and awesome Strahd is. He just gushes on, and I give him a neutral reply, and the conversation dies. I'm glad he does, and I get weird and get weird vibes. I keep playing because I love GMs who are excited about their games. I give them the benefit of the doubt and think maybe he's just really into the campaign in a healthy way. At this point, you leave, right? If the DM's talking about how tight Strahd's leather trousers are and how cool and awesome he looks, you dip. I feel like I dip at that point.
Yeah, I would be weirded out.
Yeah, I would have left. That's I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, this player didn't. Another red flag is how the DM is seething when we had discussions about moral issues among ourselves. Moral issues, even. So that is discussed these things as our characters see them and what would be the right thing to do. These are completely in-game discussions that I once enjoyed. Oh wait, I think I've skipped. Oh, I have skipped. Sorry, apologies. I have skipped a paragraph in a healthy way. It gets worse. One player was apparently receptive to his fantasy of Leather Daddy Strahd in private messages, so he starts favouring her in game. Basically, all the shitty things, which are part of the campaign theme, no doubt, happened to 3 other players, me included. She is safe from them because she shares his glee about how Strahd is hot. I know this is because they discussed the cursed hotness of Strahd on the Discord channel we all have for the campaign. Since the campaign is horror themed, I don't mind the bad things, but I do note the favoritism. Another red flag is how the DM is seething when we have discussions about moral issues among ourselves. That is, discuss these things as our character sees them and what would be the right thing to do. These are completely in-game discussions that I want to do it a lot. The favored player pipes in with nihilistic views and on how hot it is that someone just acts on their impulses and how good guys make the most boring stories. She's playing the bard, obviously. This gets her inspiration from the DM, who seems pleased. The rest of us get more shitty things. Everything we do to try and help someone is rewarded with more shit. I'm not certain this is a part of the campaign or what the DM just likes. After we get Strahd's book in town, which the name I've completely forgotten, there was a necrophilic noble lady and crazy mare. Things get out of bounds. First, we get an insight into Strahd as a child. He keeps describing Strahd's noble with a strange gusto. I get the feeling that he is attached to a definitely underage version of Strahd. The player who is in this shit flirts a little with Child Strahd, but I'm glad it leads nowhere. Instead, she insinuates that she will definitely bone him when he gets older. Things are getting mightily uncomfortable. Strahd arrives in town on a crazy flaming horse, and as it burns down, I finally get enough. The DM describes this scene as something that causes self-destructive attraction in all characters, regardless of what the characters want. To get sodomized by Strahd's flaming horse in a way to get closer to him. As we want real things so bad, the session ended in a cliffhanger with Strahd appearing. I'm quite blindsided by this turn of events. The player mentioned before is practically manic with glee, with the rest of us exchanging stunned glances. Discord is suddenly full of messages and notifications when I get home. The channel is full of naughty pictures about Strahd and various NPCs, flooded by the DM. He tells us how he wanted to show them at the very beginning, but he had to hold on for later not to spoil this. He goes on about how he has loads of this stuff, whole folders that he will share with us every time we reach a certain point in the campaign. The player who is into the Strahd kink has started making her own fanfic art, with her character being dominated by him in every sense of the word, mind you, insinuating being raped by Strahd would be so hot. The other two players are not comfortable or commenting a thing. So yeah, that's when I pieced out. I leave the campaign. I'm not a prude and don't mind kinks, but I don't think you should push your kinks into role-playing games, and especially onto the players who do not consent. I do not know if the other two players stayed in the game, but the next session was being planned when I left the Discord. This was a month ago. The real tragedy is I will never get to play Curse of Strahd properly now that I've been spoiled about several twists at the beginning. I would have left so long ago. So long ago. They had so many chances to leave there with red flags.
That was not the Strahd I meant.
I can imagine it's not the Strahd anyone has met before. Because Strahd is meant to taunt the party, not seduce the party.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, wow. I feel like after you've heard your DM describe Strahd as that hot, like in detail, I would have gone. I don't think it would have. They stayed for a very long time, considering. Like, I would have just left. Oh, God.
I feel like they had so many chances. The DM was practically waving red flags at them while DMing, and they've gone, it's fine.
That's wow. Blimey, that's awful. I didn't expect that.
I know. It's an interesting story, isn't it? But that's what we're dealing with on that one.
Oh, God. Yeah.
So you mentioned you played Strahd. I'm always curious when people said they've played Strahd about what you did in Death House.
I don't think we ran the Death House.
That's such a shame.
Yeah, he was the first time running a D&D game, being a DM. I think he took a different route. We started at level 3, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. That makes sense.
But I've ran a Death House myself as a DM. Oh,
interesting. Yeah. Tell us about that, and I'll tell you what I did with Death House.
Well, I sort of ran it by the book, but I skipped most of the encounters because it's a TPK house if run as written, especially to new players, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The broom is deadly. The broom has, I've read, wipes players.
Yeah, exactly. So I ran it more heavily into role playing aspect, that module itself.
What did they do in the basement?
Um, I don't remember if I wasn't there a shambling mound at the
There
basement.
is they've got to sacrifice a player that the player has to actually die for them to leave the house. If they don't sacrifice a player, the shambling mound attacks.
Yeah, I don't think I ran it like that. I believe there was a baby monster that I ran. I don't remember correctly. A sort of modified shambling mound that the players just had to defeat to get out of the house.
Okay,
But there wasn't a
nice.
sacrificial aspect to it.
So I kept the sacrificial aspect. But so for some context, I ran this for some friends of mine. I'm a zoologist; they're all zoologists, so very animal focused. I gave them a puppy as they walked in, a little
Oh no.
puppy, a little sick little dog.
Oh,
No.
They cared for this dog. They carried it all through the dungeon. They looked after
oh,
it, and then they got to the end, and they were like, the ghost was like, "Someone's got to die. Someone's got to die." And they were like, "What do we do? What do we do? You would make us make new characters and then kill one of us immediately." And I was like, "Dog, I guess you're a dog." And they were like, "No." They hated it, but it was so good because they'd never played before, and I think in that moment it was for them. It was like, oh, and they got D&D and the role play aspect in that moment, being like, because they were angry at me, and I was like, that is the power that D&D can have. It can make you like they hate. Oh, they were angry. It was so good. I had to do the washing up for a week, but it was worth it.
Oh,
you made new players sacrifice a dog. That's so evil.
I even gave
Why?
a picture of the dog. I found a picture of the cutest little puppy online. I
Ah,
sent it to them, and I was like,
oh my god.
it was.
Oh my.
you gave me an amazing idea when I ran a death house once
It's
more.
so good, isn't it? It is really
Oh,
good.
Oh my god.
that is so
But
evil. I love it.
one of them was like really protective of the dog, like was shielding it, and then one of them was like, "Nah, nah, nah, we've got to kill it," and acid splashed it as the player was like shielding it,
Oh,
and I was like, "Oh god." The dog dissolves in your hand as you're holding it, like the flesh slops off the bones, and they were just like, "The dog." It was incredible. Some of them were very for killing the dog, and others were like, "No, no, 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 we can't kill the dog."
Damn. Damn.
I mean, I was going to run it for you guys, and I feel like if I would have, you guys would have left. You would have all left the Discord server.
uh, all I've got to remember now is that if a dog comes up in a campaign, I'm just keep away from it. That's what I'm taking away from this.
Just don't get attached.
Yeah, just keep away from the dungeon. Just the dog. Well, one of our players has animals like things as pets, so I don't know how that's going to go.
I'm coming for George. I'm coming for George. George is on the block.
Oh no, that's oh dear. I mean, it's a good way to learn how D&D works, but
It's a good way to grip them. It's a rough way to grip them, but
you
it
say that.
it does work.
Blimey, wow. God. That's worse than that is a D&D horror story. You just given us 2 horror stories is what you've done.
I wouldn't. I would say that the one I read out is significantly worse.
Yeah, but it is. But then killing a dog is just why the dog? Yeah. Oh boy. Oh, that is wow. So you've been a player a few times and obviously a DM the whole time. If you could give us like your best moment as a DM, and your best moment as a player, I'm kind of guessing it will be easier to come up with a best as a DM moment because there's more to choose from. Or like, so last time, the person we had on last week basically hadn't been a player enough to give us a good moment. So you can give us like a wow, that's really bad moment as a player. Like you've realized another player's done something awful instead, if that's any easier.
Well, surprisingly, I just thought about the best moment as a player that I had. Uh,
Okay.
it was the first game that I was a player in the short amount that I had in the roll 20. I rolled up a paladin, and the DM introduced a green dragon to us, which was supposed to be a BBG, I believe, in that campaign. And I started bad mouthing it as a level first paladin.
I can see where this is going.
I remember the DM sighing in the Discord channel, and then I saw the dice rolls in the roll 20 chat. Um, it sort of opened my eyes to the aspect that what you do has consequences in the game.
Absolutely, I love that. Yeah,
And
actions have consequences.
even though it was my first character, I felt amazing, uh, which might be weird that my character died. Well, it was like 70 points of acid poison damage to my 12 HP barber
Yeah,
paladin.
they'll take out Paladin level 1. Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll do it.
That was like a wow moment that sort of shifted my perspective of D&D. That it can be, because D&D is a imagination. It uses heavily imagination. So for me, I wasn't quite sure about how to run consequences in D&D, but that was like sort of a learning moment for me as a player and as a DM. For
Wow.
the DM wow moment, ah,
For a time, you've been like impressed by a combination of like a battle tactic your players have come up with, or something like that. If you're a more like a combat focused DM, that'll be easier for you to think of.
there's honestly so many. Well, the first thing that comes to mind, which is quite recent, I ran a false Hydra session in Storm King's Thunder.
Ooh,
I sort of seeded it throughout various different sessions, made the players actually afraid of the things. I basically gaslighted them. Uh, I sort of modified the existing false Hydra stat block. It wasn't my intention that the players would fight against it. It was supposed to be like a huge scare to them, and they would run away, which they usually do when combat arises. Uh, but they actually fought off against it, uh, and they took it down in like one round. And all this build up of this big scary monster that has taken control of the entire town was like a wow moment. Um, and I thought it was like a deadly encounter to them, sort of hinting that if you fight against it, you will probably get a TPK. And I think I made a TikTok video about that after the session of prepping a false Hydra and then players finishing it off in one round. Yeah,
that's cool. That's impressive. One round is what level were they?
like 6 or 7. So, and the false Hydra, I believe, is like CR 16, CR 15. At least the one I
That's
modified.
impressive.
That's very impressive, yeah.
But yeah, it's both, I think, satisfying as a DM and like irritating when that happens. Because like I've planned so long for this battle, and it was meant to test you, and it was meant to be really engaging and really cool and long, and then you ruin it. You ruin all my planning.
Yeah, but I was so proud of my players at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that is impressive. So, you were talking about how when you played as a player and it changed your perspective on like how to give consequences to actions. Um, so when you started as DM, obviously you hadn't played as a player, and playing as a player gives you a whole different perspective on things. But did you just learn to DM through like books and stuff, without like obviously without playing as a player, or did you also go on like online and see how other people DM'd, to see how they do things?
In the beginning, I watched a lot of Matt Colville's videos on DMing. I don't know if you've heard about him.
Yeah.
And basically, I just hit my head against the brick wall and saw what worked. Sort of through doing, I learned the experience. Later on, when I started watching Critical Role, there was a couple of moments where I was like, aha, so this is also something I can do.
I see. Yeah.
I think a lot of people talk about the Matt Mercer effect. Have you heard about that?
Yeah.
Which you briefly spoke about before. And I think it's not entirely a negative thing, because there are things that people like they do. Like I think Abria as Abria Iron Guard. Have you seen her?
Not quite sure. No.
One thing that she does that I ask my players is, and Alex will test this, is how is your character feeling in this moment? And I think that is something that I've taken from them. And I think if you find like an actual play DM that does something really cool that you're like, that is cool, I don't think it can fall under the Burnley Mulligan effect, the Matt Mercer effect, the Brie Iron Guard effect. I don't think it's fair to categorize it as that, because there was a video a while ago where Matt Mercer said that what he does is, when he asks a player to make a deception check, he says, give me a deception or perception roll and don't tell me what you're doing. Because then the players around the table in person don't actually know if they're lying or telling the truth until it's revealed. That's amazing, and I do that now. I have stolen that. It's incredible because it has that power to be, and I don't think you can call that the Matt Mercer effect, because it's a cool thing that heightens my game and heightens everyone else's experience on the table. So I think absolutely you should be DM should be free to watch actual players and take ideas from them.
Yeah, because you can learn so much from other DMs as well. Certain play styles and how they do things around the table that you can implement on your own game.
Yeah, I feel so. Obviously, I'm yet to DM, but there's a lot of things I've taken from a lot of sources that are sat there in a folder. Like when I start, there's going to be stuff that I'm using from other people to supplement my playing. So if you had to give a really cool house rule that you might have, or something you do as a DM for your players, what would it be?
Yeah, something we can steal.
Well, the one thing that I love in my games, I don't use inspiration. I have these things called the fate points. Basically, it's like a pool of points that you get in each session, and you can use them in various things. For example, gaining an advantage on your attack or roll or saving throw. But there's also mechanics that you can sort of pull in multiple of these points. Basically, you get fate points equal to half to your proficiency bonus, which is like 4 currently. So 2 to the players. You can pull them to make a cool combo attack. So imagine a legendary action for another player. As a barbarian, you pull in 3 points, you attack, and then the wizard can cast the fireball. Sort of things like that. There's also, you can pull in 5 points to gain a hint on a riddle or a puzzle. So something like the players are stuck in. And the one thing that I'm sort of excited and dreaded upon is you can use 10 points to tell the DM no. Which basically means that if something happens in the game and the players don't think it should go this way, they can all pull in their points and tell me as their DM that no, this does not happen. And then they have the narrative sort of responsibility to tell me and the other players how things should go.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting.
That's really cool. Yeah.
That is cool. That is terrifying. I would never run it with these guys.
God,
never give them that power.
But it should be plausible. So if if you're fighting against the Lich and the players pull in the points and say, no, the Lich is actually our friend because we're nice people, then that doesn't work. But
Yeah, it's got to be within reason.
yeah, it has to be within reason.
Oh,
So,
that's actually pretty cool.
A
Yeah.
homebrew rule I saw recently was make a deal with the devil. So if you, the example I
Yeah.
saw was someone was like, say you're on one failed death roll, and you're on a nat one, and you say that's two failed instantly. You're fully dead, character's gone. You can make a deal with the devil and turn that nat one into a nat 20. So you get 2 passes, but the DM can then turn any roll you get into a nat one for the same thing. So, like, if you ever die again, the DM can immediately turn any roll, saving throw that you make to pass, into a nat one and give you 2 fails immediately, which is fun, but I would feel horrible doing it.
Yeah, that would be probably terrifying as a player to
Yeah.
know that thing.
But I think it's a fun mechanic, and I might bring it up. Well, I'm bringing it up now. If you guys want to do it, you can let me know.
Yeah,
But
that is cool. Yeah, but
I should
think
probably
so.
definitely steal that one. Yeah.
yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? It is fun.
Yeah, it sounds good. It might end up in my campaign. But yeah, I think the fate points thing is really cool because I always found inspiration to be weird. I've had inspiration
I don't
once
like
in
it.
my entire year. Yeah, that was when you gave me inspiration. It's the only time I've had inspiration. It's a one-time thing.
It's
and it's
underutilized.
yeah, it's like
Yeah, and I think
could be better,
people
and fate
tend to
point
save
sounds
up.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the one inspiration point. But the fate points, they sort of replenish each session and they go away after the end of session. So you have that one session to use them, which means that you can spend them all during that one session and you gain them all back on the next one.
yeah.
Right.
See, that's really cool. It definitely would make for better use of interactions and stuff than inspiration. I mean, inspiration is a one-time thing, but if that's it's definitely a lot better and a lot cooler. Yeah, I might have to steal something like that from my campaign as well, because I do steal a lot from things. But so a lot of DMs I know, I think every DM that I know is like was a DM when they started, was just thrown into it. So luckily I was a player. I think that will give me a big like perspective change on being. At least I hope it will give me a big perspective change.
It definitely will.
Yeah, because like I've been a player the whole time. I know how the players are going to react, like to a fucking something a player would do, like in roleplay circumstances, in like what they expect out of it. Because I've got the mind of a player as opposed to a DM, so I know how I would react as a player to that. And I think that would help me in some situations. I mean, obviously, it will help me less in other situations because I don't know what it's like to DM. But hopefully, so because I've come up with like some house rules or stolen a large amount of house rules myself. But any ones I thought of is related to me being a player because I was like, yeah, this would have been cool if I was a player and had this, as opposed to this is just a cool rule. So yeah, I definitely think I definitely think if you can like being a player at some point would be cool. But to people who are just DMs and just thrown into DMing, like good luck and hope it goes well, I guess. But yeah, it's definitely a whole different like circumstances with being a player and then going to DMing or just DMing. It's interesting to see. So I guess we'll find out how it works when the campaign starts.
Some advice that I have for people is that I think you possibly might agree with me on this. If you are new to a friendship group and they want to play D&D, don't say you're a DM. You'll never get out of it. You will be the DM for the rest of your life. Just pretend like you've never played before, and then just be really good at it.
Well, I think
don't say you've played before.
I think
that's a joke. Don't do that.
Yeah.
If your friends want to play D&D, tell them you can DM and bring them into the
When
community.
people ask me that they want to play D&D, or how can they get into D&D, my first sort of advice would be to find a game, but it's much easier to start a game of your own. And being DM is fun to sort of create this game for your friends and have them laugh around the table or on the Discord call, wherever, and create this story together.
Absolutely.
So even though I had this rough patch beginning as a DM, it's been worth it.
So I think one final question that we'll ask every time: do you have any small D&D creators you want to shout out on TikTok, YouTube?
The first thing that comes to mind is Alexander the Dad on TikTok. At least he has
Alexander the Dad.
wonderful DM advices and these DMD quick tips that he shares.
Excellent.
Also, Dyson Easy is another Finnish D&D creator that has these fun skits if you like to watch them.
So Alexander the Dad.
Yeah, and Dice and Easy.
Dice and Easy, definitely go check them out. We'll make TikTok and we'll link this. We'll link them. So thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Talking to you. Yeah, and definitely go check out Robbin the Hobbit on TikTok. Some great skits. They're really good. They really are. And we will. Forgot to say where we all are. This will be out. Well, it'll be out because you'll be listening to it. Never mind. I was going to say be out on Saturday, but it will be out on Saturday, and you will be listening to it on Saturday, hopefully. We're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. You can listen to the podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, Google, Apple Music. Don't forget to give us that 5 stars. Support the channel because it really does help much more than you think it does. It really does. And we will see you guys next week.
Goodbye.